Hi there.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And so we have a great crowd today to listen in. And, we invited you on here because we're trying to interview people from all over the world that love graffiti, that participate, that paint, and that make up this graffiti movement. Not only back then, we tend to interview a lot of people from the old school, but we also want to interview the new school. So following your work online, we thought you would be a great person to interview.
Oh, thank you so much.
So thank you for joining
I'm
us.
honored
And
to
so
be here.
I put together a presentation that will go through that sort of will guide us in the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But if you could just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and what are your first memories of graffiti?
Well, I was born and raised in Berlin, here in Germany. Um, my first memories of graffiti actually have been pretty early because when I was younger, a lot of my friends were painting. But back then, I'm talking about the 90s or something, it was sort of like a thing that the guys were doing. I mean, I was kind of involved in it, but I never really, took this break in myself. So those were my first memories, but I started painting way later than that.
So Berlin is a city that has had graffiti for decades and decades and decades. Was there anything in particular about it that really attracted you to it, or was it more that you started to meet people?
Well, when I was younger, I used to live, well, not really in the center of Berlin, but I mean, in Berlin, I think graffiti is everywhere. You cannot live here without being somehow influenced by graffiti. But when I started to paint, it was it was about 3 years ago, and there's this big legal hall here in Berlin in Mauerpark, and I saw some people painting there, and I found it really interesting and really nice. And there was one piece in particular that I liked, so I started to talk to the guy who was painting, and I told him that I would somehow like to try it, and he was like, "Well, why don't you do it?" And I didn't know where to start. I was like me painting graffiti, I don't know. And he told me like, okay, next time I see you, I will hand you a can and you'll try. And he did. So I started painting, and he was thinking that I'm joking, and he asked me how long I've been painting for, and I said, "Oh no, this is the first time I'm actually having a can in my hand." And yeah, from that day on, I couldn't stop anymore.
So that's a pretty a serendipitous or very lucky sort of meeting that you had there. That you
Absolutely.
and a very nice introduction to say, hey, why don't you just do it, come back and
Absolutely.
participate. And so you start off, and here, in these images, this looks like this could be like the beginning for you.
Exactly. This was this day that I was just talking about. That was the first day, my first time holding a spray can and painting something on the wall. I was there with a friend of mine, Christina, and I painted her first letter and my first letter, and yeah, that was my first time painting in Mauerpark in Berlin.
Not too bad for a first time.
It was all right.
So so from here, you obviously you fall in love with a spray can and painting. When did you decide to really do it? Was it this day that you were like, I'm committed?
Well, I think I was not aware of how big of an influence graffiti would have on my life on that day, but definitely after painting that day, I was super hungry. Like I wanted to do more, and my brain was like overloaded with ideas, and I wanted to try everything at once. Like I started sketching like crazy, and I went to the walls as often as I possibly could.
Amazing. And so then from there, how did you come up with the name Honey?
Actually, you cannot see it on that picture, but that yellow shirt that I was wearing had a print on the front, and it said honey. So I was like, okay, what could I paint? And I was like, okay, the day that I started painting, I was wearing that shirt. So I started doing that name, just to try it. And then I somehow, yeah, I stuck to it. So it doesn't have a really deep meaning or anything, but yeah.
And all right, so then you start painting, you start practicing. How did you go from just sort of experimenting to, let's say, here to sort of having form to your letters? Did you have an art background?
I wouldn't say that I have an art background really. I mean, I always loved to draw, and I was like scribbling little comic figurines and stuff like that. Actually, last time I visited my mother's house, I recognized that I did actually paint a lot because she has a lot of my paintings on her walls, but it was not a particular style and it was not letters at all. It was just like, different kinds of things. But letters, I never really tried anything with letters. And this piece that you're showing right now was really my first proper piece, let's say.
So you started with a simple sort of a block style,
Exactly.
but you also end up, adding sort of this illustration element to it.
Yeah.
In the letter O. And so we're going to get through it. And I think that one of the things that stands out in your work is that you have a love for
I
illustration
do.
and for experimentation. And so here's another piece that sort of, again, is playing with this illustration vibe.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Actually, this piece I've painted it with Spoa here from Berlin, and he had a great influence on my whole graffiti style as well. And he taught me a lot of things because he's like really good. Like his technique is amazing. So I remember that day I painted next to him. And he also taught me how to do those things because sometimes I was like, I want it to look like it's ripped, but I don't know how to do it. So I was lucky enough to have people who taught me how to do it.
Yes, absolutely. So, and that is very important to be able to have mentorship
Absolutely.
or friends that can give you that, those tricks, those tips to be able to get better and better. And I mean, and here you see, it's a good, I mean, you're experimenting with some cool techniques here in the blending and everything that you're doing. And so just out of curiosity, for those of us that don't know Berlin, Berlin is covered in graffiti, but now you're painting in a place, or you started in a place that's, you said, like legal graffiti. We don't even know that kind of concept of
Yeah.
legal graffiti.
Berlin, we are really lucky here. We do have a lot of legal, like really legal spots. I think, I don't know, maybe 20, 30, maybe I don't even know all the places. There's a lot of walls where you can just go and paint. And if you paint there, sometimes, I mean, the wall where I started, you start painting, and there's days in the summer, especially when the weather is nice, where people are like waiting in line to go over your piece. So basically, you take your picture, you leave, and your piece is probably going to be gone by the next day. But there's also, of course, in Berlin and in the area around Berlin, we have a lot of lost places, and I really enjoy painting lost places because they're, well, for once your pieces stay there, and also, yeah, it's more quiet and more relaxed and stuff. But I
Sure.
also, I mean, I spend a lot of time in Spain. I live in Madrid and in Berlin, kind of. And in Madrid, we don't have any legal walls, so it's a really different concept in between those two cities.
That is very interesting. So you've had to adapt into each of the cities to be able
Yeah.
to paint.
Yeah.
And so in Berlin, then starting off in Berlin, in a city that has so much great style writers, such a great history of
Yeah.
painters. And, who are some of the people that you met that started to give you tips, or that just were around? Were they newer writers that, like you mentioned, were painting at the moment? Because you're trying a lot of different things in your pieces, and I'm just very curious as to who's on your left, who's on your right, and how are you doing all this sort of quick learning, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah, as I've mentioned, I was really lucky because I I had a lot of good people around me from the very beginning who were able to teach me stuff. And as you've mentioned as well, they had a lot of different styles. I've painted with people who are really old school as well as new school people, and I was always trying, I don't know, because I didn't know what my style was, so I was trying to do different things. As you can see on this picture here, that was just an experiment basically. I wanted to find my own style, and I had a lot of people from different eras of graffiti around me. For example, Dijo in the beginning, really old school writer from Berlin, and over the years I got to meet so many people. I was really lucky, really. I have to say that I really appreciate that. And also the newer people, for example, the new crew from Berlin, which Spoa is a part of. A lot of people. It's impossible to mention all of them, but I was just so lucky, and they were just great people. It's not just that I was trying to paint with people who have good style. There were writers who are really good, and they were still willing to teach me stuff. This whole each one teach one concept was really applied, and I really appreciate it a lot, because without them I wouldn't be where I am today, I guess.
And that's, I think, a very unique thing, or maybe it's not totally unique, but it's a very important thing that I've realized that does happen in Berlin and in a few cities around the world, where people are really interested in maintaining this art form and including more and more people, because they want to see it grow and they want to see a new generation come up.
Exactly.
Other places might be very closed, but I think Germany in particular, not just Berlin, has always been very open to more people participating.
I think there's both sides. There's great people, and there's people who do not like new people in the graffiti scene, especially. I think there were some people who had issues with me being a woman starting to paint, because some people feel like you take something away from them. It's like their scene, and new people are like, what's this girl doing now? Why does she suddenly start to paint? But yeah, I mean, I think the majority of people I met here were really cool people, and yeah, really open-minded.
And so, you mentioned, the fact that, there were people maybe that were feeling that way because you were a woman, or that they were feeling that way because you're a woman. Are there other women that were painting at the same time when you were starting, or do you see them also on the walls?
More and more within the last couple of years, there's more and more people. I think, when it comes to style writing, there's only a few. There's a couple of girls who are doing characters or forms of street art, let's say. Style writing, not so much, but it's increasing for sure within the last couple of years, which I support and which makes me happy.
And so, do you feel like you showing up to the walls makes a difference? Are other women seeing you and being like, wait a minute, what are you doing here? Like, I want to do this, or I never thought to do it, but now that I see you, maybe?
I've actually got some messages on Instagram, not just from people from Berlin, but from all over the world, of girls, especially younger girls, texting me that I've inspired them to try it and to paint more. And that's like the biggest compliment I can get. That makes me so happy, and yeah, fills me with joy if I inspire other women to paint. I love it.
So let's getting back to style. Here we've seen the style is changing. It's still sort of a fairly simple
Mhm.
style, but you have great connections, and this no longer looks like it's in a legal place.
No, that's in a lost place, yeah, like an
Right. So you're
abandoned.
going around exploring still in your city, because I guess in Berlin there are lots of very cool places like this that you could find if you look.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of old buildings, old hospitals, military bases, all kinds of stuff like that.
So basically a playground for writers.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are my favorite places to paint, especially here in Berlin, because it rains often. So on a rainy day, a lost place is the place to go if you want to paint.
It's so great to have it. And here we see another piece.
Hmm.
And again, experimenting, changing up your style and your lettering, and then also doing, these sort of like almost like a hollow inside, or also 3D, just a lot of things going on in the
Yeah,
design of this wall.
yeah. I love to experiment with things, and like I said, especially in the beginning, I was so hungry. I wanted to try all kinds of stuff, and yeah, experiment with new forms or effects, or yeah, I love that.
Yeah, like the 3D is glowing, the way that you're doing the shines, like you're really going and you really are sort of experimenting with lots of different elements. And
Mhm.
there's even like, I didn't notice it now, but there's flying dicks in your background.
Yeah, there was a stencil of one of the guys who was there at the wall.
Oh, it's pretty funny. And so, you shout out in your pieces a few names. I'm guessing it's people that you've painted with,
Mhm,
or maybe crew members, Dizzy, Sten, Boss, Sold.
mhm.
And in those pictures that you've sent me, and in your IG, I've got to see that you throw some of them up, and then I've seen this a few times. Can you tell us about this?
Clean Girls, Dirty Hands. Yeah, it's not really a crew. It's more of a, well, we are friends. I mean, that's what a crew is supposed to be about, I think. Dizzy, Stan, and me, we started painting Clean Girls, Dirty Hands because all of us, we have a rather, well, let's say clean lifestyle. We don't really party a lot or drink a lot or anything. Exactly, that's us. But after painting, obviously, our hands are super dirty. So somehow we came up with this whole clean girls, dirty hands thing. And that's our little collective.
It's very, very, very cool. Wasn't aware of all the people that you paint with. So in finding your work, I've discovered a whole nother crew or many crews of writers.
Hmm.
And there's just so many around the world that it's always exciting and very amazing to discover, folks like yourself and Dizzy and Sten and everybody else.
Hmm.
And so for those of you out there that are just joining us, this is Honey. She is a writer from Berlin who's been painting for the last 3 years. This is a piece from 2019, and we're sort of going down the very beginning of her painting career and her really rapid evolution. She comes from one of the graffiti capitals of the world, so it's easy to see how she can move so quickly and develop so quickly because she's in the right place at the right time, and obviously with skill and a lot of enthusiasm and determination. And so, you're doing all this cool stuff, and this piece is an example. It almost looks like an illustration on a piece of paper.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I was trying to achieve. Yeah.
Right? Very,
Hmm.
very, very clean. Again, in one of these lost spaces, and you go from this, which is more sort of cartoon illustration like,
Hmm.
to this, which is more, in style writing and more in this, the letter tradition that we all come from.
Yeah. 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 I, especially in the beginning, I tried different things because I do have this illustration approach. But of course, I also wanted to improve my style somehow, my letters, build new connections. But sometimes that's actually a funny topic because recently somebody told me, your last pieces, they kind of look the same, the style looked the same. And I'm like, yeah, okay, because I'm not trying to force anything. That's why I started off super simple and I tried to develop like step by step. I'm not trying to force myself to paint a crazy wild style tomorrow if it's not like my natural flow yet. I'm trying to change little things, and then you know how it is. Sometimes you have a really creative period where you have a lot of ideas and it's just flowing and everything. But if I don't want to force it. I just stick with what I have in that very moment, what I feel comfortable with, and then there's enough time to experiment with different styles or new styles.
Sure. But it also seems like you're experimenting a lot with technique and
Hmm.
and playing a lot with colors. I mean, there's a lot of colors in your pieces. Like you really are going in, multicolor blends, multicolor designs, even the background. And so it's, you might not be, in a period where you are experimenting with letter design, but you're definitely continue to experiment with composition and with color.
Yeah, that's true.
And here we see some of that. I mean, here we see it more, more, a little bit more technical
Hmm.
in how you're connecting your letters, but super clean. And so someone in the chat here is asking, how do you get it to be so clean?
Good question. I don't know. I mean, it's important to me that it's clean, and I get frustrated if for whatever reason the can or the cap or something is not working right and it's dripping. Drives me crazy. I don't know. I do my outlines with a level 1 with the green skinny cap, and I just take my time and I cut the parts that I don't like, and yeah, there's no magic behind it.
Yeah, it is very, very, very clean. And so you can tell someone that wants this to be clean. Like, you definitely are a perfectionist.
I
You
am.
see,
Yeah.
you know, whenever you see a drip, it's an intentional drip. And if people can see, you know, there is cracks, and the way that the cracks are done, all of it is very meticulous.
Yeah.
And so we're going to continue to go through, and then, you know, and here you see again finding these very great places. And so sometimes, I mean, in the photos, they look like great environments to be in, to paint, secluded by the world and able to sort of focus and have fun and do your thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I prefer, like I said, I would always rather go to a lost place than to a hall, because I really love to focus on my piece. And yeah, I mean, it's nice if people stop by and, you know, you get to chat a little bit, but yeah, I mainly like to paint on more quiet places.
And so, you know, in here with this piece as an example, are you here painting alone? Is it a collaboration with other writers? I see something on the right.
Yeah, that was with Spoa from Berlin here. Especially in the beginning, I've been painting a lot with him. Yeah.
Got it.
I see some of my, I'm a little bit distracted because I see some of my friends in the chat. Hi, guys.
Yeah, there's lots of
And Yard
people.
5, the graffiti shop from Berlin. Thank you guys for joining. I appreciate it.
I think you've got a good Berlin crew on here today. And you're going back and forth, and from the pieces that I've seen, you're going back and forth from simpler styles to a little bit more complex style with more funk.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes with your simple styles like this, you have, you know, more happening around it, more of a design or illustrative feel to sort of bring out the wall, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it also, of course, depends on the time. If I know I only have 4 hours, I'm not going to do a huge, crazy wild style.
Yeah. And in here, you know, I think by, you know, you're getting to paint with a lot of pretty amazing painters. Right. I think here you're painting with bubble gum on your right.
Exactly. Yeah, we've been painting a couple of times together now. Amazing dude. And his characters for me are, well, he's one of the best when it comes to characters for sure.
It's such a great thing to be able to paint with all these tremendous painters, because obviously it starts to rub off on you. Little tricks that you see happening on your side.
That was my first underwater wall, and then recently I've painted another one with bubblegum in Barcelona.
Very cool. But, you know, I appreciate that some of these concepts that have been done before, that you're not too shy about going and doing your own version of it, right? Trying to experiment, say, hey, I like that idea. How would I do it? And approaching it in your own way,
Yeah.
with your own flavor. And so very, very cool to see that happening.
Thank you.
And here's another piece,
Mm-hmm.
another very, very cool one. And so do you care much about this whole thing of legal versus illegal? Is that ever something that comes up in your mind? Does it even matter to you?
Not too much, to be honest. I have more of a, to me, it's not too much about adrenaline. It's more about the artistic approach. And I always find it funny when people try to talk bad to me or to bring me down by saying, yeah, you don't have any, like, you're not street or you're not gangster enough. And I'm like, well, I was never trying to be. Like, you're not a ballet dancer because you've never tried, you know. I really don't care. I just like to do my art on as many different surfaces as possible. If it's a wall, fine. If it's a train, cool, you know. But yeah.
So now, so then, you know, with that said, this is a bit unusual, I guess, to go out and have to do this kind of an adventure to paint a train.
Oh, that was, yeah, that's not, yeah, I don't have a lot of them.
But what, and so for you to get into sort of this more of this adrenaline side of graffiti and to be sort of like this these train ninjas, how was that for you?
Exciting. I mean, all new experiences are exciting for me. Of course, it's totally different. It's much higher, you know. The circumstances are just different. Like, you need a leather, the surface is completely different. I remember that day I had to get used to the paint dripping on the metal. Of course, it's completely different than painting a wall, but yeah, it was a great experience as well.
Did you also have to sort of adapt and paint much faster? Or did you have a sort of a cool place?
That was a chill place, a rather chill place.
Okay, well,
So
that's
it
good.
was fine.
Would you do it again?
Of course, yeah.
And so here I see that you know, I guess you were able to start to travel a bit more outside of Berlin
Yeah.
and Madrid.
Yeah, there
And
were
so
a couple
how,
of pieces earlier already, like one in Croatia, I think, that we've passed through already. This was in Turkey, a really cool spot in Istanbul. Yeah, that's so nice. That really graffiti connects people. It's crazy how you can travel and people actually invite you to their houses, to their homes, and they're so open and so loving, and it's amazing. That was really cool. That place in Istanbul was also a great experience.
and so is this sort of like a graffiti vacation that you took?
This was not a pure graffiti vacation. I went there to Istanbul with one of my good friends, or one of my best friends, Caro, and she's not painting, but she's like giving me a couple of days. You know, she's like, okay, we go for 5 days, so you're allowed to paint for 2 days, but the rest of the time, you know, we do different stuff. I'm like, all right, all right.
It sounds like the life of a writer. You have to sort of convince
Totally.
your friends to allow you to escape
Yeah,
to be able to do that.
yeah.
Amazing. And here's another shot.
Hmm.
And then again, and here we see again more of you doing illustration. Is this you doing the bee?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did that. Yeah, because I needed to fill that space up there on the wall. It was like, okay, I need to do something. I didn't want to extend my letters on that part, so I was just thinking on something I can place there. So it was a bee.
Very, very cool.
Thank you.
And then again, more of these abandoned places that are always so cool to see.
Yeah.
And then here more of the illustration style. And
Yeah,
so
this is, I love this piece as well.
and so is this part of a bigger production, or this looks like it's just you right there, right?
This was really just me. Yeah.
Very cool. And you seem to have a love for cartoons. I see them a lot in your pieces.
I do. I do. I was, yeah, I mean, I grew up watching cartoons, so yeah. I love to incorporate them in my pieces. And it's fun to do, you know, like the piece itself is nice, but adding a little character or a little something next to it, I love that. That's a lot of fun because it's also a different approach, you know. If you do the long outlines and everything, but then you have those little tiny lines doing a character, I love to mix those things up.
It's a total different sort of a mindset that you have to have when you start to incorporate things around your lettering, sort of to complement them, and then also, you know, learning how to paint them. It's one thing to learn how to paint letters; it's another thing how to learn how to paint everything else.
Totally.
And so, you know, one of the things that I noticed from your Instagram is that you are practicing a lot in your iPad.
Yes, I do.
And so I pulled a couple of these images so that people can understand just not only is there a lot of work that goes onto the wall when you actually go there to do it, and the preparation of it is also a lot of work. So the practice doesn't just stop when you leave the wall.
No, definitely not. And I mean, the iPad is really a great thing to try colors, to see what it will look like on the wall. You can actually, sometimes I take pictures of the cans that I have left, and I take them on my iPad and I extract them from there and see like, okay, what can I do with them? Do they go together or not? I mean, that's a really cool thing to do and helps me a lot.
That's a very smart way to do it.
Mm.
And so here we see, you're as good as doing them on an iPad as on paper and as on the wall. But I think, for everybody who's out there that's listening, that's kind of considering doing this or that does this, this is an amazing tool to use.
Absolutely.
For planning.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there's still some people, especially some old school people who don't want to try all that digital stuff, but I think it's a great tool, like you've said, to experiment, to try, to sketch and everything. It's super easy to, you fill it with one color and then you're like, no, I'm not satisfied. So you just take another one and you see what looks best. So yeah, I love that.
No, I think it's a very, very powerful tool. I think since the iPad Pros come out and is it Procreate that people use, it's really changed the way that illustrators work and makes their work so much easier. And to see a writer using it as well, like you're doing it, I thought it's a total game changer. And your explanation of even photographing the colors and importing them into Procreate so that you can plan in advance.
Yeah.
Very, very smart use of the tool. And so here we go back to.
This was basically rest cans. I had a couple of, before that I've painted a red piece and a green piece, and I had so much leftovers and I didn't know what to do with them, so I just did that.
Right, so again, using the material that you have and just going for
it. Exactly. My friend Dizzy from India just tuned in. Hey, girl.
Yes. And I know we've interviewed Dizzy in the past and heard her story, and it's great to see that you two have been able to collaborate on so many pieces.
Absolutely. She has become like my little sister, really. I love to paint with her. It's always good vibes and fun and good energy, and yeah, I appreciate Dizzy a lot.
Very cool. And one of the things that we see recurring in your pieces is the halo.
I love it. It's my favorite element. Either the crown or the halo. It just gives it that little detail, like to fill in a little gap on top or something.
It's a very cool and element to add, and it's also such an old element going back to the early 1970s. So it's very nice to see that it's still being used and also being used in a different way, so that it's not just on a tag, but you actually have a halo on your entire piece.
Yeah.
Which is a bit more of an unusual approach to using it.
This was in Mauerpark. This is the wall where I started painting.
So you've gone back.
Yeah. Couple of times.
very, very cool. And so here we go. You've gone very simple, just basically one color. And you have to be very confident at this point with your letter structure to just do a one color piece.
But I find it super easy because it makes cutting so much easier. If you have a line that you're unsatisfied with in a fading, it's like, oh gosh, how am I gonna cut this? With a one color piece, it's easy.
A million colors and redoing the whole thing. It's basic, but also the piece has to stand out on its own. You can't camouflage the letters, even though I don't think in your style you do that. But there's always complaints or things that writers say that all the colors camouflage the letter structure.
That's true.
But here you can't do that. You cannot hide it.
Yeah, that's like the simple chrome and black piece. It's just about the letter structure and the style, and I mean it's the same with one color pieces. Yeah.
Exactly. And here, so I think that people are very much enjoying seeing all these works and the variety of pieces that you're doing. And for our audience out there that is joining us, that are new to Honey as a writer, if you go on her Instagram page, you will see so many more pieces. This woman is a painting machine. She's painting all the time, and so you'll see hundreds of pieces on there. And this is just from
Well,
last year, from
thank you so
2020.
much. I hope I can go back to painting a lot soon because I don't know if you've seen, but my arm is injured, my painting arm. So I have to rest a little bit now, unfortunately. So all of you who are
That
watching, please keep your fingers crossed that it will heal very soon.
so we have our fingers and our toes crossed for you.
Thank
And
you.
so let me ask you a question. Being in Berlin and being in Madrid in the past year, and even now with COVID happening, did that mess up your painting efforts? And how did you get through that time period?
I think having a hobby like painting graffiti, you're super lucky during this whole period because I know a lot of people who didn't really know what to do with their lives anymore. If you cannot go out and meet friends or the restaurants are closed, for some people it was really hard. For me, it wasn't, I have to say, except for 2 months where I was really completely locked down in Madrid. Well, actually, it was 3 months. I remember I started a piece on the 14th of March last year, and I went back to finish it 3 months later because we were not allowed to leave the house at all. Like we were really completely locked down for 3 months, and that was horrible, I have to say. I hope that I had never have to do that again because I was really missing painting and I was scared. I was thinking like, oh no, now after 3 months I'm probably gonna mess everything up, but I guess it's like riding a bicycle. It was good afterwards.
And so I'm guessing you decided that you were done with Madrid after that.
Well, no, I still like Madrid, but that period of time was super difficult, super difficult. And I was kind of like, when people were complaining in Berlin, like, oh, we are locked down, but there was no real lockdown in Berlin. I mean, the restaurants were closed and some of the shops, but you were still allowed to leave your house. And not being allowed to leave your house, that was really one of the worst experiences I ever had. So I hope we will
Right,
not
right.
go back to that.
I hope that that is way over and that we don't have to go back to that. It's been a very difficult time for everybody all over the world.
Definitely.
And so in Madrid, when you were living there and started to paint there, I'm guessing you also were able to collaborate and paint with tremendous amount of writers
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Did you
Super.
did
mm,
No, go ahead, please.
no, super nice people. I met amazing people there. Super friendly, super open-minded. Unlogic crew, for example, just to name one of them. And I have my little circle there. Durek, Diet, Song. Shout out to all of you. Yeah, it's the the scene is really nice there as well.
And so and stylistically, did you notice or is there like a difference between the approach of the Spaniards in Madrid and the Germans in Berlin?
Well, the big difference is what I've mentioned earlier, that there's no legal walls in Madrid. So if you do find a wall where you think that nobody really cares, and you paint there a couple of times, it's more or less your wall, and others respect that, so nobody crosses you there. So the good thing about that is that you can make like super detailed concepts. You can take your time to paint a wall. You can work on one wall for 3, 4, 5 weeks if you want to. So you can really take your time with the background and everything. So that really changes the approach on doing a wall, because in Berlin, if you do go to a legal place, it's more or less like a 1 day piece. And in Madrid, I take more time to do a piece. And yeah, that changes the whole approach, I would say.
That's a great thing, and it's nice when your pieces actually last.
It is.
right? Versus when they disappear right away. And so when you started to see, or in painting at those legal spots that you mentioned, does it hurt when you see the next person come after you and paint over your piece, or are you totally at peace with that?
No, I think if you paint at a hall, at a legal spot, that's you have to live with that. If you want your pieces to stay, don't paint at a hall. So no, no, it doesn't bother me.
Right, you have to find your own spots if you want it to live.
Exactly.
And so, can you tell us about this one here? Here we see you playing almost with like candy.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love like bright colors. I mean, I love both. I also love like muddy or those ugly tones or pastel tones. But this one was just this was the first piece of the year 2021. So I wanted to have like a little firework, of colors.
It looks like straight out of your iPad. It looks like you just projected it on the wall. Even in even in almost like in the glow around the letters,
Mhm.
it's almost looks like it's computer generated versus paint generated. So I mean, you really are able to leap from one tool onto the wall, which seems like with no effort, but with such precision.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
It's totally true. It's just what it is. And here for everybody else to see, we see your style again, still sort of changing and growing, and it seems like you're playing more with it, or at least in this piece, in how the letters are aligned, and just your use of uppercase and lowercase a bit different than before. And you've got people shouting you out from Cuba, from all over the world.
That's so nice. This one was also, I had a lot of cans left and I didn't really know what to do with them. So that was with this one, that I really didn't have a sketch or a plan or nothing. I just went to the wall and saw what I could do with the leftovers that I had.
It's cool that you are able to sort of pull in the colors of the flowers uh, in the foreground into your background.
I love that. If I know the spot where I'm painting and or if I've seen a picture of it before or something, and if you can kind of incorporate the surrounding or the colors of the surroundings in your piece, I love that. Really cool.
It is a very cool effect. And again, more funk. This one's explosive.
Yeah. Turquoise is my favorite color, so I think you can never go wrong with turquoise.
It is a great color. And here's a very unique and maybe even strange piece. It's almost like it's blurry.
Yeah. This was actually for a contest that we had in Madrid, organized by Madrid Riders. That was quite funny. All of us, we were I think 11 teams, and we wrote down a topic on a little piece of paper, and then like everybody picked a paper, so you didn't know which topic you were gonna get, and then you also chose a color scheme. So then you had to work with the topic and the color scheme that you got. And we had virtual reality and those shades of turquoise and a little bit of coral. So we went for that glitch effect and like a virtual reality game or whatever.
It's a very cool execution of virtual reality
Thank
and
you.
of the effect. It's interesting to have these challenges and these gatherings. Is that something we don't necessarily have that much here, even though there is a a history of them, like jams happening in the United States. But I think that that's a much more of a European thing. Are you seeing that coming back, or have you been seeing sort of like writers reunions, or these kind of paint jams happening again?
Jams a lot, and I find that super cool. I've just recently been to a big jam in Austria with I think 360 artists. And that's so cool because you get to meet people like you knew their styles before, and then you finally can put a face to it and you can exchange, and that's super awesome. I have a jam coming up in Hanover, and then I will be in France in September at another jam. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's such a cool way to exchange and to get to know the people that you've been following maybe, and you like their styles, and then you get to know them in person. So yeah, I love that.
It's I'm very happy to hear that it's coming back because things are so uncertain at it seems around the world
Mm.
that people ready to produce events and be open is it's very great news to hear.
This was my piece from the jam in Austria recently.
Super clean.
Thank you.
Su- And so I mean, so you're traveling. I'm hoping that you're sponsored or you're able to get paint. Obviously, the jams provide you with paint. There's one of the questions in the thread is, you must be independently wealthy to be able to afford all this paint.
I think you need to set your priorities right. Painting for me, for sure, is my number one priority when it comes to spending my money. I'm not sponsored. I do I'm do get cans from MTN every now and then, but I'm not generally sponsored. I pay for 90% of my own cans, and like I said, you just have to prioritize. I don't party a lot. I don't spend my money on useless stuff like, I don't know, drugs or alcohol or whatever. I focus on painting.
It's a great hobby to have, especially when you really commit yourself to it and you really dedicate to it because you see the results right there on the wall or
Absolutely,
on the
it's
train
super,
every
yeah,
time.
super productive hobby. Yeah, exactly.
It's a super productive hobby.
Very rewarding because after a day of painting and putting in effort and everything, you see the whole picture, and I don't know, it gives you, me at least, it fulfills me with joy, and it gives me so much. And also, while you're painting, it's almost like a sort of meditation or something, it gives me so much. I don't know, I love it. Greetings to
It,
Azil, I saw him in the comments right now. Yeah, this was my, was it the last piece I've painted? It was also in Austria, and I got to meet Pepe from Russia. She did the character, amazingly talented woman, and that was also really cool. What we've talked about before, that the background kind of matched the surroundings matched the colors of the piece.
I see that even with the checker in front of it,
Yeah,
right? You mix it in. No,
yeah,
I think it's very good to be open and to be able to play like that. But then you have to know how to do it, right? So I think the practice is really how you're able to achieve these great results.
absolutely. There's no shortcut. That sometimes people ask me, like, younger people write me on Instagram, like, hey, how can I achieve this level or something? And the answer is always practice. It's just practice, hard work. Focus on where you want to be, and practice and sketch, and yeah, that's it. There's no shortcut.
There are no shortcuts. And so I wanted to show a few other images of your work, but with the writers that are around you, so that people can understand that you're also not an island. You're not alone all the
No,
time, and that you're surrounded with very talented people
absolutely.
that I'm sure are pushing you to to do as good or as great work as you possibly can.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are Adem and Durek from Madrid. And yeah, I paint with them a lot in Madrid. Lots of fun.
So that's those guys, and then there's this,
This
which I
was,
thought was an exceptional collaboration as well.
thank you. This was with two girls, with Aura on the left doing a style, and the character in the middle is also done with by a girl. So we were three girls doing that wall.
And then you see your piece there. And so where was this one painted?
in Neuss. That's a little city in the west of Germany. That's where Aura is from. So I visited her there.
That's very good. So you've been able to get back out there and start to travel
Yeah, yeah,
and see the world and then also make these very special collaborations.
yeah. That's I'm really grateful for that, and that's what I was missing. Of course, during the pandemic, now it has gotten a little bit easier in some countries. I think you learn so much by painting with new people. There's people who always stick with the same crew, and I don't know. I mean, maybe they have other sources of inspiration, but I think if you meet new people, if you travel, if you exchange, it gives you so much. Like it influences you, and you learn new techniques and new approaches, and you inspire each other. So yeah, to me that's
I
very
think
important.
it's a really interesting point that you bring up about working with different crews or with different
Mhm.
writers and sort of I guess being a little bit out of the box with that and being open to collaborations so that you can learn, so that you can sort of really develop maybe different approaches and not necessarily be stuck in a particular way of being or a particular
Yeah.
style. And so
I
it's
got
and
I got
it's
criticized. I got criticized for that in the beginning, like, yeah, you cannot paint with everybody. And I was like, of course I can. I choose the people I paint with, and I find it super interesting to get to know new people and to paint with them and to travel. So of course, I think that gives you so much. I learn a lot from that.
Yeah, no, I think it's amazing. I think that many of us maybe more in the old school, and not that I don't think that I'm old school, but I guess maybe I am now. We are a bit closed-minded about those kind of collaborations sometimes, or leaving and painting outside of a particular crew. We feel like it's betraying our friends or betraying the crews, and and in reality, I think when you open yourself up to those collaborations, you tend to have very interesting results and end up learning,
Of
which is
course,
I
I mean,
think a great way
in
to
the end,
continue to grow.
it doesn't mean that you forget where you were coming from. It doesn't mean that you betray your friends. Like they're still your friends. You just, I don't know how to say that in English. Widen your horizon, I guess somehow. So yeah,
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. No, I think it's true. I think it's true. And so I encourage that, always now when I see it, I'm like, oh, that's kind of amazing because you get something new that might be unexpected.
yeah.
And then from there, it might change the sort of your journey, your artistic journey a little bit. And so as we wind down the talk, because we're almost at the hour mark,
Yeah.
I wanted to open up the conversation to our guests that have been with us for this whole hour,
Hmm.
listening and writing in and commenting. And so if there's any questions out there from the audience, and if you guys want to add your questions to the comment section or to the question icon here, we'd love to answer some questions in the next few minutes. And then also to everybody that's donated today and the badges, thank you very much for your contribution to the museum. It's very special to us and it means a lot. And so, all right, so some questions. Okay, so first question coming up. How do you feel about hand styles? Is it a priority for you or do you even care about it?
Hand styles. I'm sorry, I'm not a native English speaker, but we're talking about tags, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Uh, I'm in the beginning, I was really hesitant with that because my tags were not really nice. Now they're getting better, and I also love doing tags, and I always have a little drip marker with me. So, yeah, whichever city I visit, you're probably going to find some tags there.
Very cool. All right, let's go to the next questions. Next questions is who are your inspirations for writing?
So many people. I mean, we've talked about it. I'm trying to, I mean, it's good to get inspiration from others, but in the end, I'm also trying to find what fits me best, like try to find my own style. But there's so many people I love to paint with. I don't want to be unfair and forget to mention anyone here, but maybe in the next couple of days in my story on Instagram, I will just make a list with the people I aspire the most. I think that will be fair.
Very, very cool. Next question. Are you interested in painting in America after the pandemic?
Of course, of course. I would love to paint everywhere. When it comes to me, I would love to paint everywhere. I hope I will be able to visit the States soon again.
Great. And next question. Are there any women you would want to write with that you haven't gotten to write with yet?
I've met a lot of people already, but there's still a couple that I haven't been painting with yet. From Spain, for example, Musa, Rubia. Of course, if I ever get to do a wall with Metzi, that would like blow my mind. I haven't met her yet, so I would be super happy to paint with her. And I'm sure there's so many other great female artists that I don't even know about yet. But yeah, there's still a couple on my list.
Okay, next question. Do you flow with music when you paint? And if yes, what do you listen to?
I do. Either, well, let's say generally hip hop, or I actually, my favorite music to paint to, this is a bit funny. I'm a fan of Marvel and I love Guardians of the Galaxy, and they have this awesome mixtape, volume one and two, with like old school hits from the 80s, and I adore them. I love them because they give you, good vibes, good mood. So that's my go-to music.
Very, very cool. Another question. Do you freehand those big circles that you do on your pieces?
Most of the time, yes. I mean, it depends on the size. If they're too big, sometimes I use a little string or something. But if it's within the range of my arm, then yes, I freehand them.
All right. So another question. Do you have a favorite brand of paint?
Mostly, I paint with MTN. But I mean, Montana Black and Montana Gold are also super good. Unfortunately, they don't have them in Spain, so I don't get to paint with them very often. But Loop has a great coverage. A bit too much pressure for my taste. When it comes to the outlines, I prefer low pressure pens. So MTN is my go-to, I would say.
Got it. Well, honey, thank you so much for spending an hour with
Thank
us
you.
and for granting us an interview. We love learning about your whole journey as this young writer. I'm going to say young because you've got 3 years into the game. So we hope to see you for the next 15 years, 20 years, still doing it and
Hopefully,
blowing our minds. And so if you come to Miami, please come and check us out at the museum. We'd love to see you here.
of course.
And everybody else, thank you so much for joining us for this live Instagram art talk. My name is Alan Kett. Thank you so much. Come and see us in Miami and stay tuned for the next art talk on Thursday. Have a great
Thank
day,
you so much.
everybody. Peace.
Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.